The history of game theory. To put it simply, game theory is the study of how and why people make decisions. More specifically, it is the study of mathematical models of conflict and cooperation between intelligent, rational decision makers. It helps people understand parts of science, politics, and business. Game theory had been discussed for many years, but did not exist as a unique field until John von Neumann published the paper on the theory of games of strategy in 1928. Von Neumann's original proof used Brouwer's fixed-point theorem on continuous mappings into compact convex sets, which became a standard method in game theory and mathematical economics. His paper was followed by his 1944 book, Theory of Games and Economic Behavior, co-authored with Oscar Morgenstern. During the following time period, work on game theory was primarily focused on cooperative game theory, which analyzes optimal strategies for groups of individuals, presuming that they can enforce agreements between them about proper strategies. Around 1950, John Nash developed the criterion for mutual consistency of players' strategies, known as the Nash Equilibrium. It's applicable to a wider variety of games than the criterion proposed by von Neumann and Morgenstern.
Let's look at a quick example of game theory. Two men, poor and down on their luck, thought up a harebrained scam for an online casino. Adam was the older and the ringleader. He had a degree in computer science and was very good at getting into the back door of poorly secured websites. Ben was a university dropout. He initially took the maths course, but didn't pay enough attention in the fundamental skills lecture, causing him to fall into a pit of despair. Adam hacked in and was able to access the back end of the website. On the roulette wheel, he was able to make whatever number he wanted come up. All what Ben had to do was bet efficiently and not be caught by the site's moderators. Of course, he went all in on black every time it was a black number and all in on red when it was a red number, so they didn't do too well and were immediately detained. Both men were taken into separate cells in solitary confinement, and they were both offered the same deal. If they gave up the identity of the other as the ringleader, there'd be set free and the other man would have 3 years in prison. If they both talk, they both get 2 years in prison, as they'd be conspirators on the scheme. If they both didn't say anything, they'd get away with 1 year. Obviously a moral dilemma. Both of them decided they would betray the other, and by all accounts this is actually the best method. This is a very common problem in game theory that they call the prisoner's dilemma, and if you draw it in a box like this, you can see that by betraying you have less to win and more to gain. Although it is correctly the right answer, you would think most people would go get the lighter sentence, is guaranteed, you know? No one would say anything. But since these two had never met in real life, just online, and they didn't really know each other well, which I probably should have explained better at the start, it made sense for them to both betray the other one, thinking that the other one would be a bit more loyal. This case is often studied, and it's supposed to be linked to our human nature itself.
A basic definition of game theory is the study of mathematical models between separate, conflicting, or cooperating decision makers. This can be implemented into many real-life situations. For example, it helps businesses understand why consumers make certain choices that they make by creating flow diagrams that can break down decisions into different aspects. However, the entity or person must be known, as it is their belief in how they value different objects which determines the most likely outcomes. Furthermore, combining the use of game theory with social sciences and politics allows governments and economic businesses to also predict the reaction to large-scale events and how this can affect their interests. This has been a presentation describing game theory and its applications in real-world issues by Oli Edwards, Oli Edwards, and Dafydd Evans, Group 11.